Ly Tu Diem here. Hello everyone. I sincerely wish you all good health and peace, wherever your heart may be. Love is a beautiful thing, but sometimes it stands on trembling ground. CEO Toan and I have walked through storms together. But now, a new challenge rises not from fate, but from family. His father's objection cuts deep, like a silent wall between us. And I can't help but wonder, will Toan give up on me? Will the weight of blood and legacy be heavier than the love we fought so hard to keep? I don't know the answer yet, but I do know this: true love doesn't walk away. It holds on, even when the world says let go.
The sky was heavy with the scent of an oncoming storm, as if nature itself sensed the turmoil in his heart. Toan stood by the large glass window of his office, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. But his thoughts were miles away, lost in the memory of a girl with tired eyes and the gentlest smile he had ever known. Ly Tu Diem. The name alone stirred something deep in him, something both fierce and tender. They had come so far, from the day she saved his life in the forest when he was lost and injured, to the silent dinners and stolen glances that slowly turned into something real. She had never asked for anything, not his wealth, not his name, only the quiet chance to breathe, to live, and to heal from a past that had already taken too much. But now, his father had returned, cold, commanding, powerful, a man who believed love was a weakness and that legacy mattered more than happiness. You cannot be with a girl like her, his father had said, voice sharp as ice. She's from nothing. She is nothing. If you choose her, you lose everything I built for you. Toan had stood silent then, not because he agreed, but because for the first time, he felt the weight of everything he might have to lose. The company, the family name, his father's support, all for one woman. But Diem wasn't just any woman. She was the one who found him when the world forgot him. She sat beside him when no one else knew he was missing. She held his hand without asking what he could give her in return. His heart was not confused, it was the world around him that tried to make him doubt. Each word from his father was a sword. But Toan knew, no empire was worth building if the cost was love. Still, Diem had pulled away. She had overheard the argument. She had seen the way his father looked at her, like she was a shadow to be erased. And so she had left, quietly, without goodbye, believing she was only making things worse for him. Now, Toan faced the storm not just outside the window, but within himself. Should he chase after her, knowing it meant turning his back on the man who raised him? Or should he stay and let go of the one soul who made him feel truly alive? The decision was his, but his heart had already chosen. Toan turned from the window, reached for his coat, and whispered, "If love is a battle, then let me fight." And somewhere in the city, Ly Tu Diem sat by her rain-streaked window, still believing she was forgotten, never knowing that love, real love, was already on its way. The rain poured heavier as the night deepened, each drop tapping against the window pane like a whisper from the past. Ly Tu Diem sat on the small bed of her rented room, clutching a thin blanket around her shoulders. Her eyes were red, not from the cold, but from the ache of walking away from so much she loved more than life itself. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but when she heard Toan's father speak with such cruelty, "She's not worthy of our name. She's a mistake you'll regret," something inside her shattered. She left without a word, afraid that staying would destroy Toan's future. But love doesn't fade. With distance, it grows louder in silence, and Toan couldn't pretend anymore. By the time he reached the small neighborhood she once mentioned in passing, the streets were already quiet. He knocked on doors, showed her photo to strangers, asked every vendor if they had seen a girl with kind eyes and a soft voice. Most shook their heads, but one old woman selling steamed buns at the corner recognized her. She lives upstairs. The woman said, pointing to a dimly lit balcony above. Toan's heart pounded. He climbed the stairs two at a time and knocked. No answer. He knocked again, firmer. Inside, Diem sat frozen. Could it really be him? When she opened the door, Toan stood there, drenched in rain. His eyes filled with everything he'd never had the chance to say. You left without saying goodbye, he said softly. I thought it was best, she replied, tears welling up. I didn't want to make you choose. I already chose, he said, stepping closer. I choose you? I'll always choose you. My father can take the company, the house, everything, but not you, never you. Her tears fell freely now, a mix of pain and hope. But your future, my future is nothing without you in it. There was a long silence, broken only by the sound of the rain. Then, slowly, she reached out, and he took her hand, holding it as if it were the most precious thing in the world. That night, the storm outside began to fade, and in the quiet warmth of a small room, love won again softly, but fiercely. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, casting a golden hue across the small room. For the first time in weeks, Ly Tu Diem woke up with a sense of calm, not because her problems had vanished, but because the man she loved had stood by her when it mattered most. Toan was already awake, sitting near the window with a cup of coffee in his hand. He turned and smiled the moment their eyes met. Good morning, he said gently. Good morning, she whispered, her voice still laced with disbelief. You really stayed. I'm not going anywhere, he replied, unless it's with you. Diem sat beside him, wrapping the blanket tighter around her. She still couldn't believe it. Toan, wealthy, respected, burdened by a powerful family, had chosen her. A woman who had nothing to offer but love and loyalty. I don't want to cause you more trouble, she said hesitantly. What if your father cuts ties with you? What if the business falls apart? Toan reached for her hand. Let him. I won't build a life that costs me you. If I lose everything else but still have you, I haven't lost anything. His words pierced her heart like sunlight through mist. She didn't speak, just rested her head on his shoulder, letting the moment speak for her. Later that day, Toan brought her back to his apartment, not the grand house he grew up in, but the new place he had prepared when he first decided to move away from his father's control. It was modest, quiet, filled with light and peace. His mother, who had slowly come to understand Diem's pain and kindness, visited that evening. She brought warm food and a soft smile. I didn't have the courage to stand up to my husband for a long time, she said, placing a hand on Diem's. But my son has taught me what courage looks like, and I want you to know, I support you both. Tears welled in Diem's eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief. A silent bridge had begun to form, one built not on wealth or status, but understanding. Outside, the world kept spinning. There were still challenges ahead. Toan would face the wrath of a father who had lost control. Diem would still battle her scars from the past. But in that small apartment, with the scent of home-cooked food and the quiet beat of two hearts in sync, a new chapter had begun. One built on choice, one built on love, and most of all, one built on truth. Life lesson: true love requires courage and integrity. In the story of CEO Toan and Ly Tu Diem, we are reminded of a powerful truth. Love is not simply a matter of the heart. It is a matter of courage. Toan comes from a world of wealth, influence, and expectations. His life is carefully shaped by his father's ambitions, and every step he takes is measured against the family legacy. On the other hand, Ly Tu Diem has known suffering, rejection, and a past filled with silence and sacrifice. The odds were against them from the beginning. When Toan's father strongly objected to their relationship, many would have expected him to walk away to protect his future, his reputation, and the business he was born into. But instead, Toan chose to follow his heart. He chose Diem, not because it was easy, but because it was right. The lesson here is that real love demands integrity. It asks us to stand for those we care about, even when the world tells us not to. It asks us to speak truth when silence feels safer. And above all, it asks us to be brave not just for ourselves, but for each other. Diem, too, teaches us something equally important, that worth is not measured by what we have, but by who we are. She had no wealth, no name, no protection. Yet she carried herself with quiet dignity, never begging for love, but always ready to give it. She shows us that self-respect and honesty will always shine, even in the darkest corners. In the end, their love didn't come wrapped in luxury or accepted by all, but it was real. It was earned through honesty, sacrifice, and unwavering faith in one another. And that is the greatest lesson of all. Love is not proven in words, but in choices. When we choose love with courage, we change not only our story but the lives around us. Love, like life, is often tested in the most unexpected ways. For Toan and to Diem, the test did not come in the form of distance or time. It came from within the very people they called family. And yet, their journey reminds us that the storms we face are not meant to destroy us, but to reveal who we truly are. Toan stood between two worlds, the expectations of a powerful father and the gentle truth of his own heart. He knew that choosing Diem meant risking everything he had built: his position, his family's approval, and perhaps even his future in the company. But what he discovered is that no success is worth having if it demands the sacrifice of someone you truly love. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it is the quiet decision to say, "I will not leave her," even when you're afraid. Sometimes it is sitting with someone in silence, defending them without needing to shout, and holding their hand when the rest of the world lets go. For Diem, the lesson was just as powerful. She had every reason to walk away to protect Toan, to avoid judgment, to spare herself more pain. But true strength is not in running from love, it's in believing that you are worthy of it. Diem stayed true to her values, never demanding to be chosen, but remaining steadfast in her quiet love and dignity. And through that, she taught us that real love is never one-sided. It is built on mutual respect and faith. This story teaches us that the people who matter will fight for you, and sometimes the battle is not about changing the world's opinion, but about staying true to your own. So when life places you in front of a hard choice between what is easy and what is right, remember, Toan and to Diem. Choose love with courage, choose truth with strength, and never forget, the heart that dares to love in the storm will always find peace when the sky is clear. Hi, chat.